Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. For those of you new here, my name is Donna, and for those of you not new, thank you so much for continuing to come back and support my channel. I appreciate all of you so very much. Today I am doing the next installment in my palette roulette series. I believe this is number 87 for those of you that are counting, and this week we actually had two palettes to dive into. We do that occasionally here on my channel. The palette roulette series is a series that I started because I drew inspiration from a lady here on YouTube who has changed her channel name. It used to be called Danny Bo, and now I think it's called Witch Doctor PhD or something like that. Anyways, she did a palette a week series in which she used an app, choose palette. She used that palette for, you know, an undisclosed amount of time. And then when she came back to us to talk to us about the palette, she decided whether or not she wanted to get rid of the palette in her collection or whatnot. Mine isn't really a declutter series. That's not what it was based on, but it was based on a you need to use your shit, Donna, on a series. And I've gotten a lot of use out of my palettes by starting this series. I'm really happy to be on this journey, and I really do love playing around with my palettes throughout this series. And I use an app just like hers, only I do have an Android system, so it's kind of like a Wheel of Fortune app of sorts. So these are the two palettes that we had to use over this last week. This one here is the Huda Beauty Desert Dusk palette. This was the first palette that I purchased from Huda Beauty. I do kind of just love the eye thing on all of her palettes. I don't know why. And then this one is one that I picked up early this year. It is a McGrath Labs Eye Ecstasy mini palette, and it is in the Subversive shades. So I am going to start with the Huda Beauty palette. You can pick it up on hudabeauty.com. You can pick it up on Sephora. I believe also you can pick it up on many other retailers, online retailers like Beauty Bay and Beautylish. I can't remember exactly, and I didn't go as far as researching that part, but on Huda Beauty, it does have a 4.9 star ranking with a 111 reviews. I do love that it has less than a 5-star review, even if it is just a smidge less than 5 stars, because that tells me that they're allowing also for the negative reviews or the less than 5-star reviews to stay on their website, which some retailers do not do. On the Sephora website, it does have a 4.4 star rating, and that has just over 2,000 reviews at 2,034. I don't think that either one of those are necessarily inaccurate. I would say probably the 4.4 star is where I would rank it. Just after utilizing it. This wasn't a palette new to me. I had used this palette in the past. It was purchased at a time when I didn't have so many palettes in my collection, so it was a palette that I reached for quite a ton when I first purchased it. It was a $65 palette. I believe it was also $65 when I purchased it, which says a lot because a lot of the beauty creators right now, the industry is kind of raising prices on their palettes, and I don't think that this one has raised at all since I purchased it when it first came out in 2017, 20 something. This is what the palette looks like on the outside. Most of Huda's palettes do have like her eyes on the front of the palette, and I think that it is just beautiful that they fashion it that way. And this one is inspired by Arabian desert sands, so hence the motif on the front of the palette. And then on the back of the palette you do have information about the palette, as well as, you know, their socials. You can find them on social, and it does tell you how to find them. It gives you a 12-month shelf life, and yeah, it's not a cruelty-free company, so that is a big deal breaker for a lot of people. If that is you, this is not a cruelty-free option for those of you who only utilize cruelty-free makeup. There are 18 shadows in this palette. It does look like this. It does have a pretty healthy sized mirror on it, and it does lay flat, which I enjoy. These are the 18 shades in that palette. There are 4 finishes in this palette. You do have one glitter, which is this one here. And then you have 8 mattes, 6 shimmers, and 3 duochromes in here. There's 0.89 ounces of product in here, or each pan therefore is 0.049 ounces per pan. And these were expressed on the website and everything in between as being highly pigmented, easily blended, buttery smooth shadows. I don't know that I would necessarily agree with that, even when I first purchased it. Now, I do know that this palette is old in my collection. It is one of the older ones, right? It's roughly 2.5, 3, well, it's almost 3 years old at this point. I think I bought it Christmas time, so it's 2.5 years old in my collection. And I will say that none of these shadows felt any differently than they do currently. So this isn't about it being an older item in my collection, but these are really dry, really stiff shadows, and they feel really grippy in the pan, kind of like they have like granules in them. They don't, but they do feel that way in the pan. I will also say that they do take quite a bit to build up. This eye look that I have on today is almost all of it from this shadow palette. And I have this one on and this one, and then I have these 2 colors on as well. I did try and venture into this glitter, and we'll get there with my thoughts on it. It does have this shade in it and this shade in this eye look today, and I feel like they're just not as pigmented as I want them to be. It did take me many moons of time to get this eye look today, and mostly because I tried to mess with this glitter and it just wasn't gonna work. These are really powdery in the pan. I would say that that doesn't translate on the eye though. I didn't see a whole lot of fallout on my face from utilizing shadows in this palette. So the powderiness definitely just sticks in the pan. One of the other things that I think is a perk of this palette is it does come with one of those plastic sheets to separate the shadow from the mirror to keep them protected, but it's a cute little sheet, so you want to keep it in your so you want to keep it in your palette. So I do love that about this. At least it's got a little more detail on it than, you know, just the regularized plastic film that they put in there a lot of times. This is a little bit drier of a formula than some of my other palettes, and I did notice that even when I first brought this into my collection. I had a lot of ColourPop in my collection at the time. I had some Too Faced in my collection at the time, and I did notice that this was a drier formula than even those. So it hasn't changed much, but I definitely notice it more so now because I do have some really great formulations in my collection right now. Huda Beauty, I would say, is probably not my favorite one. They're, at least in this palette, the mattes are quite grippy, quite dry. The shimmers are beautiful and they are creamy. They're super buttery soft. They work really well with your finger or a brush or everything above. I think that they went on really well, especially with my finger, but they also went on really well with a brush. But as soon as you started blending them out on the edges, they kind of lost a little bit of their sparkle, which led me to packing it on some more. And if you get too carried away with packing it on, it does look a little bit cakey on your eye, because I think just sheerly because of the creaminess of the shimmer shadows, I feel like that's a good reason why they feel a little more wet going on. So when you pack them on and pack them on and pack them on, you are going to see a little bit of cakiness to them. The duochromes, they're pretty good, mostly sheer in nature. I really love this retrograde one. This one is probably my favorite, but it is the sheerest of them all. It doesn't really go on with any kind of pigmentation. You guys can see that it is pretty sheer, except for on the external parts of it, and then it kind of has like this pink like line, which was aggravating sometimes with some of the eye looks that I did. The other one is this one, which is Twilight. It is right kind of in the center of the palette, this one here. And it also is a pretty sheer formula, but I think that it shows up a whole lot better than Retrograde. I would say that the duochromes work best when they're applied with your finger, but your finger must be wet. So like get them on your finger, spray them with some spray, and then tap them into your eye look. I did put Retrograde into my eye look today, and I did tap it on with a wet brush, but you guys can't even tell that it's in this eye look at all, which is sad to me because I can tell when I'm looking into the mirror. I can definitely see a little bit of the shift, but it's not super apparent, and unless you kind of know it's there, you're not going to be looking for it. These go on so great with like a tacky base, so a glitter glue of some sort is your best bet for making them like be presentable in your eye look without having to cake them on. The glitter was crap, and you know, honestly, this comes from a person who doesn't really like glitter in the first place, so you may have a different experience with the glitters, and that's okay. I just don't like glitter. It is boasted as a loose glitter. It does have a little bit of like creaminess to it, so it's not like immediately going to like fall all over the place, but as soon as you start tapping it onto your eye look, it does fall all over your face. I still have glitter on my face right now, and I took that stuff off within seconds of having it on my eye, and I did use a glitter glue, and it still went all over the place. I wasn't happy with it. I even thought about digging it out of the palette and putting it into the garbage can before I even tried this video because I didn't want it all over, but I was able to clean it up in the palette. It was all over. It was all over. It was a mess. I do have some favorite shades. I did show you guys the two duochromes that I really, really love. This one is also a duochrome, and I really, really love it. It's called Angelic, and it is in an eye look that I did. I'm kind of wearing like a coral top, and I have like this orange thing going on my brow area, and then this all over the lid, and it just brings some lightness to the look. Even though it looks pink in the pan, it actually performs quite well with any of the colors in this palette because it's going to like sway whichever way that you have colors in your eye look. This shade right here, it is called Turkish Delight. It is one of my favorites. It's just a really pretty like burgundy shimmer. So beautiful. And then this one also is called Blood Moon, and it's just kind of a little bit more orange than that one, but also a very beautiful color. Blood Moon is actually the shadow that's all over my lid today, topped with some Retrograde, and you can't even tell that the Retrograde's in there, but there's that. The mattes in here, I'm not in love with them. I'm not in love with any of them, but the worst one by far is this Amethyst shade. It is a really piss poor excuse for a shadow. It feels like sandpaper. That is it there, and this is what it swatches like, but man, once you start like buffing that into your eye look, it just doesn't transfer onto your eye at all. It is really, really poor shade, and you guys can see I just started kind of blending that a little bit, and I don't know if you guys can see, but man, look at the patchiness in that. It just doesn't blend. It doesn't blend at all, and it has been that way since I purchased this. This was not my favorite color in the palette at all from the very beginning. I do love this shadow here, and it does feel a little sandpapery. That is the shade, but also again, like you start to blend it out. I would say this one, once blended like that, is actually one of the more pigmented shadows this orange is really, I wish you guys could feel these shadows with me, because they really do feel like they're sandpaper. Those two shades there, my favorite mattes. We do have like a really nice like setting color if you want to put a primer on and set it. This is a great shadow for setting. If you have a little deeper skin tone, this is also a great shadow for setting. I did set my eyes with this shadow every single time I wore a primer, and then I would even put this one on top of that just to deepen it up a little bit into the crease, and it is in my eye look today, more towards the top. I love this like really peachy color here, and this one kind of sways in between red and orange. It's kind of like a terracotta color. It's really pretty. But you know, if I was in the market to get rid of any of my Huda palettes, this would probably be the one that I would get rid of. And who knows, we'll see. I definitely think that this is a dupable palette. It's a very dupable palette. I definitely have better versions of every single one of those colors in my collection, so it's on the fence for me. Do I keep it? Do I not keep it? I do love all the shimmers. This one is a really beautiful brow bone shimmer. It also works really well on the inner corner, but it does have some like micro glitters in it, so I try and steer away from it as far as going into my inner corner. This shade here is a beautiful, what appears to be lavender or taupey in the pan, but it's just got a really pretty like rose gold tone to it. And it might seem at first glance to be too dark to go into your brow bone or in your inner corner. It's actually a really beautiful color in both spaces. I did an eye look with that as my brow bone color in my inner corner, and I just loved it. With that being said, this palette is kind of on the fence for me. Like, do I get rid of it? Do I keep it? I do love it, but it is a totally dupable palette for me. Maybe I'll do some work in my collection and see if I can like exactly dupe all these except for that glitter, because I could care less whether that glitter was in there or not. And then think about getting rid of this palette, because they're just not comfortable shadows to work with, because you have to dig in so much and because you have to build up so much, and because to the touch they're so grippy. Probably far worse than any of the other palettes that I've shared with you guys that have grippier shadows. The second palette that we had to work with this week was the Pat McGrath Labs Ecstasy mini palette, and this one is in Subversive. The palette on this one is just like a clear white plastic. I know Pat McGrath Labs is typically real luxe, real beautiful, real like this, right? A big lacquer box. This is definitely not a big lacquer box. It's just a clear, almost plastic box, but it looks very much like the lacquer boxes, only in a miniature version in plastic. This is the front of the palette, and then this is the back of the palette. It just has a sticker over it. It tells you what the shade names are, tells you that there's 5 of them at 0.035 ounces each, and then tells you that its shelf life is 12 months. And then this is what the inside of the palette looks like. Obviously no mirror. It is a mini palette. You're probably not going to get a mirror on very mini palettes. This guy has 5 shades. It is a limited edition palette, and when I saw this one and the other one populate on Sephora, I had to jump on them. They're only $28 for 5 of Pat McGrath Labs special shades, and I know that you guys have heard me say this over and over again. I really feel like that's where it's at for Pat McGrath. I'm not a huge fan of her mattes. I think that they're buttery soft, and I think that they blend well, and I think that they're pigmented. I just don't like them, and I'm not sure what the reason is. I just don't like Pat McGrath's mattes. So this is where my attention goes to when I look at a Pat McGrath palette. Like, I'm really looking at those special shades, and these are 5 of her special shades. 2 of them, these 2 here, can be found in singles, and these 3 were part of her Decadence palette. This is 0.18 ounces, so each of these is 0.035 ounces like it says, which is a decent size eyeshadow pan, right? This is about the same size as maybe a little bit smaller than, say, a ColourPop shadow, which is, I think, 0.05 or close to it. These are jewel tones. Again, all from her current collection. None of them are new. They're pigmented, they're creamy, they're blendable. I would say they work well with each other for blending. They also worked really well with the other palette that I was using. Pat McGrath Labs, I cannot confirm nor deny whether they are a cruelty-free brand. While it does say on their website they don't test on animals, I will tell you I did a whole lot of research on this, and in 2017 it said that they didn't test on animals unless it was not avoidable by law or something along those lines. And I was reading some blogs on somebody who was trying to investigate why the change in their verbiage on their website under that, and they can't determine also whether they are 100% cruelty free or not. So I'm not going to say that they are, even though their website says that they don't test on animals. It doesn't mean that they're distributors that they get product in from do not. And I'm honestly not sure whether or not they sell in China. I couldn't find a wholehearted answer for that one. My granddaughter is screaming in the background if you hear that. I think that these work best when you apply them with your finger onto an eye look. I know I had this yellow on an eye look that I did that you guys will see a picture of, that was popped into the center like a halo eye, and I did initially put it onto my eye with a brush, and within, I don't know, a few hours it was starting to kind of wear away. So I did pop a little bit more onto my finger and just kind of place it onto my eyelid, and there's something about the warmth of your finger and the warmth of your eyelid together that just kind of melts the shade into your eye look. And I found that I didn't have to reapply it again after popping it onto my eye with my finger. The only one I really did not like is the blue. I do love the color. The shade of it is gorgeous. I just couldn't get it to work really well with my other shadows that I was using, and I couldn't also get it to stay on my eyelid. This is what that shadow looks like. Oh my god, you guys, it is such a beautiful, beautiful shadow, and I really hate that I didn't like this color. But it's not that I didn't like the color, it's just that I couldn't find a way to work it into a presentation with the shadows that I had in this palette. It was beautiful on my eye, but I did find that it kind of wore away a lot easier than some of the other shadows in here did. I am going to go ahead and swatch the other shadows for you so that you guys can see what all the shadows look like in this palette. Okay, so this is kind of like a deep maroon shadow, and that one is in Decadence, and then this is the gold one that is also in Decadence, and then these two shadows can be found in single pans, and they are also quite pretty. That is those 5 shadows in that palette, and I just think that they are so pretty. And like I said, Pat McGrath special shades are really where it's at for her collection, in my opinion. A matte is a matte is matte. I mean, sometimes you find these mattes that are like groundbreaking for you and game changers. I didn't really find that to be the case with Pat McGrath's mattes. I do find that to be the case with her special shades, her shimmers. Things that stood out about the ingredient list for these shadows to me are that they're made with both rice bran and honey extract, and those are supposed to provide antioxidant properties and soothe the skin. The honey extract also is what helps support the radiance of the shadows in these palettes. So I think that is fantastic, and I love that there's call outs to those ingredients in the ingredient list. This one will definitely stay in my collection. This one I am probably going to go through and see if I can do some work on duping it in my palette collection that I currently have, because it just isn't my favorite, you guys. And I do like Huda. I have a lot of her like little obsession palettes. I have I also have the new nude. I also have the rose gold remastered. I love those two shadow palettes so much. This one just, maybe the formulation has seen better days. Maybe I can pan the ones that I want and then just also get rid of the rest, because I do know I have those colors over and over again in my collection, and probably better formulas. It is so hot in here. It's sweating. So with that being said, we are going to pick a new palette. To pick a new palette, I do have a Samsung Note 9. I picked up an app on the App Store called the Decide Now app, and it just looks like this. It's just like a Wheel of Fortune app. I know that they also have these apps on the iOS system. I would love to know if you're playing along with me right now. As we get new palettes in, I do put them into this wheel, and as we use them through the palette roulette, or I've decided to declutter them, I do take them out of here. In order to spin the wheel, we just hit the button right there. Oh, okay, it's not. I thought I forgot to take the ABH Norvina palettes out. This is ABH Norvina, but it does say Mini Volume 1. That's the only mini palette I have. I'm going to go get that real quick. All right, guys, this is the ABH Norvina palette. This is the Mini Volume 1, and this is what it looks like inside. I haven't used this palette yet, and I'm excited to use it. I think that instead of pulling a second palette, I am just going to utilize some of my single shadows with this palette, because I think this does have quite a bit of color, and what I'm really just looking for with this palette would be maybe some neutral tones, right? And I can definitely pull those from my single shadows. So, and I need to give them some love too. I'm excited to come and talk to you guys about this palette next week. I hope that you are as well. I hope that you loved this video, and I hope that if you did, that you're considering giving it a big thumbs up. It really does help our channels out here. And if you didn't like it, please tell me why you didn't like it. Go ahead and give me a thumbs down if that's what you want to do. It's engagement either way on my channel, and I'm here for it. But I would really love to know why you don't like it if you don't like it. In addition to that, if you do like it, or you liked me just a little bit, I hope that you're considering subscribing to my channel before you go. It would warm my heart so very much. I would love to have you guys as part of my happy YouTube fam here, and I would love to see you guys down in the comments section. Please leave me comments down there. Do you have the palettes I just discussed? Are you interested in any more information than what I discussed on the palettes? And if so, hopefully I was able to get all my pictures in here for you. If you have any questions on the colors that I used in any of those eye looks, or pieces of the palette that I used in any of those eye looks, please let me know. I would love to hear from you guys. Thank you guys so much for coming to watch my video with me today. I do hope that you enjoyed it. I also hope that you're having an amazing Monday, or will have an amazing Monday. I hope that your weekend was spectacular. I hope that you are taking great care of yourself, that you're staying safe, that you're wearing a mask if it is mandated by your state, and that you're just staying well out there, right? Socially distanced, love each other, but love each other from afar. Please be kind to everybody out there, and until next time, guys, bye.